Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live broadcast of Adults Only. I'm Jahi, and that's Chazz you see in the corner there. And we're going to talk tonight about a very important subject. And Chazz, first of all, before we get into our subject, I just wanted to know how you're doing this week and all of that good stuff.
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing well. I had a little nap. I normally don't take naps, but I took a nap.
Come on,
So now
man.
I feel pretty good. So when you get old, you have to get your nap in, and it's like refreshing. And so now I got a lot of energy, but I'm gonna make
Okay.
sure I slow it down because tonight's subject we're gonna have to probably take 2 weeks because tonight's subject for those who are joining us is called "Walls Up, Minds Off." In other words, we're going to be talking about many African American adults. We've given up on learning. And so we want to find out why is that? What are some of the reasons? And then what happens when you do that? Because if you continuously do that, there are some results that we're going to talk about, Chazz. And I think those results are not really pleasant. But we just want to talk about that tonight because I really believe that when we get up in age, a lot of us, we shut down. We don't care to learn. We don't want to learn, and we have other things that we do. And that's really sad, Chaz. It's really going to be a sad commentary tonight, but it's a truthful one. What do you think?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We all do that as far as, like we said, we get stuck in our ways and we feel like we've learned everything that it is to learn in this life. And like you said, we just shut down and don't think that there's nothing else to learn.
Okay, Chaz, let's take it up from the top for this first note, and then we'll get into some dangerous results.
Many adults have given up on learning. You can't pay some of us to learn anymore. Exactly. And to add to that, we're distracted from our own personal lives, our jobs. Some of us have children. We just don't care to learn anymore. In fact, like I said, we think that learning is really for people in college, high school, middle school, stuff like that. So we feel like, okay, we've done all that in our younger years. Now it's just the time for us to relax, have fun, and just to let our hair down.
And I think that's one of the reasons that this country that we live in, it's the world, but the country in which we live in, we're on a decline, Chaz. We're on a mental decline
Yeah.
because many of us are not honest. But the point is, we have our minds shut off, just like the subject says, walls up. We've put walls up. And so we've shut our minds off like a light switch. And, it just baffles me why, when we get to a certain age, that we don't care to learn anymore. And I know you mentioned we think we know everything, and that's true. But, Chaz, I want to make a quote real quick, and then we'll go ahead and look at some of the dangerous results for these for us adults who stop learning.
Okay.
There's a quote that a man named Voltaire made. He was a guy that was around during the Enlightenment in Europe, and he said, "The greatest enemy of truth." He said, "It's not the lie, Chaz." He said, "The greatest enemy of truth is not the lie." He said, "It's the lazy mind."
Mm.
And I think that's true, man. That's true because the mind has been shut down. And how do you live like that? I know we're just talking, but how does a person live like that, Chaz? I don't get that.
Well, I told you our comfortability. Like I said, a lot of us, and there's nothing wrong with this. We're subscribed to Netflix, we're subscribed to Hulu, we subscribe to YouTube, all these things, and we get comfortable in that. We watching all these shows, we getting all this food, we getting all this popcorn, eating, sitting back, eating all this ice cream, not doing much, and we feel like this is our time to relax. And all the stuff that we're addicted to, and once again, I'm addicted to things, you're addicted to things. It's just the fact that we're addicted to all these vices. So now we feel like our comfort zone is number one, and we don't care about any kind of learning or anything.
And I think sometimes I'm hard on the phone, and sometimes I'm hard when it comes to social media. But there's really nothing inherently wrong with that. It's
Right.
the time that we spend. I watched the movie today, and it was really refreshing, to watch a movie. But you have to add how many hours are in a day, and how much time do we spend learning as opposed to looking at social media or the television or the phone, because I know a lot of us, the phone is our vice. We stay on the phone a lot. And I believe that's why a lot of people don't like broadcasts and shows that talk about learning, because that's something that we know we're not doing. But let's welcome our guests, and we'll continue to talk about the importance of the mind.
Okay. We got our comment sister Marie fires in here. She says, "Hotel family, we appreciate her." Nuji's in the building. She fires in here. Says, "Peace and blessings, fam. We appreciate her."
Okay, Chaz, now let's talk about some dangerous results because we don't often talk about the results. If we keep doing something, there's a price that we all pay. And here are some dangerous results for an adult when he or she stops learning, when they don't want to learn anything, they don't want to know anything. Let's take these one at a time, and you can start off reading, and we'll get into each one.
Number one, mental stagnation. This means the mind is no longer growing or being challenged. And then the second point, the person is stuck in their thinking
Mm,
and wrong routines. I want to touch number two and I'll let you get number one. I literally just said number two. We're
okay.
stuck in our own patterns. Like I said, going to work, coming home, taking care of our kids, if we have them, cooking, which once again, there's nothing wrong with that. But we're caught up into these routines where we don't want to break them. We don't want to shift anything or do anything new. So now our routines become our priority. And in fact, even myself included, sometimes when you break that routine, we just go haywire. So our
Yeah.
routines
Yeah.
are number one priority.
So we're stuck, it says, mental stagnation. That means that we're not moving, and a lot of us haven't moved in many years. You know, there was a time when we were younger, we would like to look into books or whatever it was we wanted to learn. But I think when we get in our early 20s, because at that point, you know, we're living the life and all of that, we just stop, man. And it's like, who can live a life? That life has to be boring. That life has to be a drag, if you will, because we're really stuck in our thinking. In other words, we're at the same place we were 40 years ago because we don't look at anything to learn. And it's like, that's one of the reasons that I think the problems that we have today are so evident, especially in the African American community,
Mhm.
because we don't take learning anymore serious the way we should. And I know you want to talk about number two.
No, I was saying that I was saying number one was the first one. The
Mm.
mind is no longer growing or being challenged. But I had read the second point. But I'll go to the number two. It says fixed mindset, a belief that you can't change or grow. I want to stop right there on
Okay,
that one.
okay,
A
okay.
lot of us, blacks, whites, Mexicans, Japs, all these races, we feel like there's no more room to grow. We've learned everything we needed to know. You can't and that's the number one thing. You can't tell me anything. I can't tell you anything. We got all this knowledge. We got all this wisdom. And that's the point it blows our minds up. We puff up and we say, you know what? I don't want to hear what you got to say. I pretty much what you're going to tell me I already know. And that's why we're just shut off with that.
Yeah, there was a time back in the day that people went through a period from the late 1600s to the late 1700s, and they call that the age of enlightenment because people challenged the system. People were into books. Mainly, this was in Europe. People were challenging the system. They were challenging the religious doctrine. They were challenging logic, reason. You know, they were coming up with a lot of things. So they called that period the age of enlightenment. But I like to say today in our culture, we have the age of ignorance.
Right.
Now, again, people don't understand when we say ignorance. A lot of times they think that that's a negative connotation to say someone is stupid or dumb. But no, ignorance means that we just don't know. But we don't want to know, as point two says, people with a fixed mindset. This is just how I am, and stop trying to improve or learn new things. You often hear people say, "This is just how I am." You know,
Yeah.
you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You know, these are the mindsets and these are the philosophical understandings that have crippled us, man. You know, many of us haven't learned in so long. When we throw our head to the side, the dust goes up from it being so old and us not being able to. You see the dust coming out of our hair because no thought, no credible thought, no intellectual thought. This has really taken its toll on us as a culture because many of us, Chaz, we don't want to learn, and it's sad after that. Go ahead though, please. Number three.
Learn helplessness. When someone believes that no matter what they do, they can't change their situation, I'll take that one real quick. And there are some of us who get depressed, we get fed up, we get frustrated, we feel like there's nothing that's going to change. I've exhausted all my options, there's nothing else I can do. And in fact, some of us feel like there's something spiritually attacking us to where no matter what we do, it just seems like something's always knocking us back. I can never get on top. Something always happens at the last second to where I can't improve. And some of these are are mindsets and the thought process on why we feel like we just can't move up no matter what we try because something always backfires on
But
us.
Chaz, if you think about everything that we're going through as a people, you would think that we would constantly be trying to learn new things. We would constantly be reading. We will be constantly, sparring mentally so that we can grow psychologically, emotionally. But it seems like the opposite. The lifespan of an African American adult basically is when we get in our 20s, after we live that old life that we say that we, trying to get out and fly a little bit. Once we come in our early 30s, we shut down learning and we just live. Like you said, we go to our jobs or we do whatever we do. And this is a sad epitaph on African American adults because I see that you can't have a intellectual conversation. You can't have a stimulating conversation because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to sit down and talk about the solar system. Nobody wants to talk about astrology. Nobody wants to talk about anything other than foolishness because we get caught up in that. Now we feed on nonsense. Like you said, one week I think we're talking about how Steve Harvey show, those comedy shows are great to a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with watching those. But if that's all we do, Chaz, you have to tell me that there's something wrong with that because people suffer from what's called aphasia. And a lot of people don't know this, but aphasia is when you don't use your mind after a long time, it's just basically warps. And then it's hard to learn and you don't want to learn. And I think that's what the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds spot on. Like you said, hopefully we don't ever get to that point. Hopefully we wake up before it gets to that state. Going on to the next one, it says they may give up trying to learn or grow because they think it won't matter. Yeah, they probably feel like it's not a college degree, it's not a bachelor's degree, it's not something important like that. So they say, no, it just doesn't matter. This little information that I'm listening to or I'm learning from, it's not going to help me anyway. I can't get money off of it. And in fact, if it's not money attached to it, we're going to give up anyway because we think money is the number one object. Money is the number one goal. And when that's not attached, if you just learn this stuff for free or, doing research, if it's not any kind of money or significant wealth or power coming from it, we're not going to do it. And that's why some of us give up as well with it.
Well, Chess, help me out here because I normally don't ask a lot of questions, but I'm going to start the process of asking questions because I don't know the answers and I can't find the answers. But my question is just, why would an adult, a grown person, an African American or otherwise, but in our context, we're talking about our people. Why would an adult, Chaz, why would they shut down for years? I can understand when people don't want to read and research for a minute because they just tired or whatever. But for many years, Chaz, learning is not important to us. And I just need some help trying to weed through this because it doesn't make sense to me. Everything wants to learn and grow. At the animal kingdom, they learn constantly, all the time. But we are supposed to be much more intelligent than the animal kingdom. But yet, many of us, we don't want to learn. In fact, we get angry when we talk about new subjects or we're trying to learn things. So just help me try to understand what has happened to us. And this is not anything new, Chaz. This has been going on for a long time. When we get older, we just shut down learning.
Yeah. And like you said, and some of us don't have the patience, brother. Like I said, this isn't a cop out, but I'm just telling you what some of us say. When we learn or try to learn new things, we want to be on the fly, snap, pop, and easy to where we just getting everything learning. We don't have the patience. Some things frustrate us if we don't understand it, especially when it's new. It may take us a week, 2 weeks, a month to understand a certain thing. Brother, we don't have the patience for it.
We're getting down tonight because here go the question again. But Chaz, if the goal in life is to become a better person, and the way to become a better person is we have to learn how to be a better person. See, and if we're not trying to learn how to be a better person, or whatever the case is, we're stagnant. And as you were just saying, all those reasons you are given are spot on. But I'm still going back to what kind of adult in their right mind would not want to learn, Chaz? That's the thing that keeps baffling me. And maybe I should leave it alone, but I don't understand why we can't sit down and open up something like not just a book, but open up something that's going to challenge us, or that we can't have discussions where we want to learn. When is the last time an adult has been to some type of learning facility or personal learning?
It's been a while. and as well as far as not going to any certain establishment, learning things. I mean, I'm always on Google, YouTube, looking and trying to find new ways on how to get an advantage and stuff in life. But like you said, as far as actually step foot in an establishment, that's not beneficial to us, like going to something that we really, really love or some kind of autobiography about a person we like. Stepping foot in an establishment, brothers, it's been some decades. I'll probably say probably 3 or 4 decades.
You could take number 4, Chazz, but I want to say this before you read it. My heart is really bleeding right now, and that's a figurative expression. It's not literal, but my heart is really bleeding now because as I think back, as far as us, not just one person, but as a group of people, all these points that the dangerous results, they affect us, and we're in it now. We're stagnant. And this is why we're going to talk later on about why a lot of us don't want to learn. We'll talk about some of the reasons why, but these points are just spot on. Mental stagnation. We have a fixed mindset, I should say. We have learned helplessness. There's no help. There's no hope. We don't want to hear it, and we shut people off all the time. And it's like, what happened to the learning part? So you could take number 4.
Apathy means just not caring. And that's sad to say. A lot of us, we just don't care. Some of this is going to go right in someone's ear and goes out the other side. They're going to say, this isn't anything. I don't care. I mean, it's not like I said, and I said this earlier and I'll say it another time. If it's not giving us any kind of spiritual, any power, any wealth, anything to where we can flex our muscles, anything like that, we're not going to care because we're going to look at it as frivolous, useless, and stupid. So once again, if it's not giving us money and power, we're just going to say, like we said, we're not going to care. And that's just the way most of society is. And that's sad, brother. When you have a society or a group of people who's just saying they don't care about anything, it's like, wow.
And we make children when they grow up, we make them go to school as adults. We force them to go to school because we tell them we want you to go and learn. That's the goal. Although we know a lot of the things they're learning is not, kosher, but we make them go to school. We tell them you got to go to school, get an education. You got to read. You must do this and do that. But we ourselves, we don't do it. We don't do it ourselves. And we're living in an age of pervasive ignorance, I would say. And it's like, we don't see it because we've been going through this for so long. This is normal. Just like number 4:2 says, intellectual apathy, meaning not caring, is when someone no longer cares about learning or understanding new things. I mean, when I spend a lot of time looking on the computer, learning, but my thing is this. It's not about me. It's about making sure that my mind is constantly being fed, you see.
Right.
Now, I do other things. Don't get me wrong. I work out. I do other things. I'm on my phone sometimes. I watch a movie here or there, and that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is, Chazz, when we don't want to do that, when we don't want to learn, when we don't want to understand, what kind of life is that for a person to not want to learn, man?
Yeah, and like you just said, we don't want to learn, and I keep saying this because I'm gonna just say it like this, okay? Comfortability. Now, this may sound simple, but I really believe that when you have a person who has a comfortable lifestyle, they do things a certain way, they're not really being bothered, they go to work, come home, they want to relax, cook, eat, or whatever. Like we said, there's nothing wrong with that. But when our comfortability, and especially like I said, when it's learning something new, trying to understand all this knowledge, we don't have the patience for it, and our comfortability is our number one heaven. To where we don't care. We just got to be comfortable doing what we do, and that's going to be the death and the demise of a lot of us.
Number 5, then, Chazz, go for
it. Emotional shutdown. Sometimes past trauma, failure, or depression can cause people to shut down emotionally and mentally, especially for all the people who have grown up in a tough environment, especially, and I'm not making fun of this, this is a serious subject here. If someone has been abused, whipped, beaten, emotionally we shut down. We don't want to gain new relationships. We are so shut off and just sick of all the trauma and the pain that we've been through. We emotionally shut off to where we're saying we're not letting anybody else in because we think everybody's the same. Everybody's out to get me. Everybody's out to attack me. I'm the villain and the world is against me. And that's not the case. I'm just saying this is why a lot of us emotionally shut off. And we don't have the patience or energy to keep going.
Walls up, minds off. We shut our minds down like you shut off a computer or you shut off a light switch. And it's like we need to look at ourselves, Chaz, because each one of us have to look within our hearts and see what we can do to be better. And it makes life much better when we do that, because the trauma that we've gone through in the past, all the failures, depression, that still shouldn't allow us to shut down and not want to learn anything. If anything, that's going to make the problem worse, because now we're going to sulk in it. We're
Wow.
going to just sulk in it. We're going to complain. We're going to murmur. We're going to groan. And that's not really good. So take the last point and we can get off of this, because these dangerous results are just killing me each word we read.
This can lead to avoiding learning, growing, or taking on new challenges. I'll let you take that one, and I'll just piggyback off of it.
Okay, because a lot of us, we have emotionally shut down, so we don't want to learn. And so this is one of the reasons that we don't want to learn, because we have shut down and we don't want to grow. We don't want to take on challenges, because some of the challenges that we go through, Chaz, they require that we learn. The challenges that we go through in life, it makes us learn to deal with the challenges. But unfortunately, many of us African American adults, we're living in an age of stupidity. And
Wow.
I don't mean that to put anyone down, because it's not about that. It's just, when you don't learn, when you're not interested in learning, you show, you show that you're not interested in being a better person. And that's the part that I think is really sad, because a lot of us, we've shut down, man. And you hit it earlier when we first started talking about how we've gotten accustomed to a lifestyle where all we do is what we do, but it doesn't require learning anything that's positive. Yeah, we'll watch things on social media, and that's fine. We'll watch a movie, but to sit down and say, this is what I'm learning. And when you ask someone that, they will get angry when you say, what have you learned lately, Jahi? Give me something what you've been learning. Then we'll get angry instead of saying, well, this is what I've been reading. I've been reading that there's a galaxy that's coming towards this our Milky Way galaxy. It's called the Andromeda, and it's supposed to smack up against our galaxy in 4.5 billion years, and everything that we know as life will not exist. All these things that it's just there. But I don't know, Chad. We better get off of this, because I think we're not beating a dead horse, but we definitely gotta get back to what we were talking about. I think we have some comments too, so let's go on and see what we have here.
Sister Sakina fires in here. She says, blessings to you both. We appreciate that, Sister Sakina, for you logging in.
Oh, I want to say something to Sakina real quick. Sakina, she donated to an upcoming production that we have, and you're starring in it as well, Chaz. It's called Broken Glass. We'll talk about that later on as the date comes, August the 30th and 31st. We'll do promos and all that on this broadcast. We'll even talk about it on the broadcast. But Sakina, she went to GoFundMe and she donated to the cause. And this is a beautiful sister, man, who has a lovely heart, who says the cause of abuse is worth donating to. And I just wanted her to know I appreciate it. And she's on top on my list, man, because she always puts her money where her mouth is. And to me, that's a wonderful thing, to not just talk about it, but to be about it. So once again, I thank Sister Sakina for donating to GoFundMe. That's just a beautiful thing, Chaz. Let's continue to go here.
Sister Barbara fires in here. She says, Hotel Brothers. We appreciate her. Before I get to Sister Marie's comment, I was going to say quickly, out of appreciation, we do thank Sister Sakina as well for kindly donating out of her wallet, because a lot of us, we get tight-fisted. We don't want to give. Of her to give to the donation, that's a polite sister. I want to say I appreciate her for donating. And Sister Marie had fires in here. She says, I believe, excuse me, we handicap adults in learning. We rather show them just to get them out of our hair. That's true. And that kind of ties into what I said earlier, her comment about patience. We don't have the patience to sit there for 30 or 45 minutes to teach this person or individuals a certain subject or a certain thing. We tell them once, maybe twice, and tell them kind of nice, nasty, get out of here. This is it. This is, don't really ask me anything. If you need help, you got Google, you got YouTube. It's just a problem with patience, brother. We don't have the patience, and that kind of ties into what I have been saying per comment about we don't have the patience really to teach people.
You're tuning in to Adults Only. My name is Jahi. The other gentleman you see is Chaz, and what we're talking about tonight, the subject is walls up, minds off. How many adults have put walls up when it comes to learning and shut their minds off and have not learned anything in many, many years? And we're trying to encourage all of us tonight that, especially us adults, we've got to get back into learning. I mean, we have to open up books, especially books that our ancestors wrote, or books about science, books about whatever, so that we can become better people. I mean, there's so much out there to learn, Chazz, and I think sometimes we forfeit it because many of us adults, we're not interested in learning, and that's a problem right there.
Sister Mashana Fires here. She says, hello, all. We appreciate her for chiming in as well.
So, Chazz, let's talk about this then. Let's talk about some reasons why many adult minds have shut down. Here's one of the reasons. Take it away.
Letter A refusal to change. So we reject learning. And that comes back to how we have been brought up. We always say, especially if you haven't seen somebody in about 10 years, you bump into them at the gas station at CVS or Walgreens, and they say, hey, what's up, Craig? You ain't never changed. You still got that loud music blaring. You still wearing them gold. And these are things that we embrace, which is nothing wrong with, doing certain things. But brother, when we refusing to change, and then Craig says back to you or me, I ain't gonna never change. And with his chest out and his head up in the sky, that's just how we are. And it's sad. It's sad. And that's why a lot of us, we're rejecting it.
I'm glad you brought that up because, Chazz, that's something that we have to talk about as a people. We don't want to change, so we reject learning because we know that true learning is going to require that we change, see? And this is one of the things that I think we need to spend a little time on, because the refusal to change, it shows a mind that is debilitated. It shows a mind that is really stagnant, a mind that doesn't want to grow. So what we have is we have some problems within our own hearts when we shut down. In other words, we're working against ourselves because we're rejecting this learning. We don't want to learn. And so our lives become a life of running all over the country. We're running all over the city doing nothing. We're all on the social media doing nothing. We're all, looking at TV doing nothing, but we don't take that quality time to say, hey, I'm going to learn this. When is the last time we read a book, a personal book, that's a good book that's teaching us about us, teaching us some basic things to learn? When is the last time we ran into somebody and we asked them not what's happening, but what are you learning now? See, that should be the phrase. What are you learning? And if we're honest, most of us will say nothing because we're not interested, and we have to encourage each other that this is a problem. And I don't even think we don't even see this as a problem, especially adults.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. I just wanted to touch on that. A lot of us will look at this and say, this isn't serious. This isn't bad. Nobody's going to crime. If we don't want to learn, we don't want to learn. And that's a scary situation or spot to be in, because at that point, like you said, we're not using our minds. You used the word earlier that basically means when we don't use our minds for so long, it just shuts down. It shuts off. And we don't want to get to that spot. But I just want to touch on that to where, like I said, brother, it's just, we don't think this is significant or serious, so they think we're just yapping.
But Chazz, this is very serious. That's why we're spending time to have this discussion. See, we want to talk about religion. We want to talk about politics. We want to talk about all these other things, and that's fine, Chazz. All those other things are fine. You can't build your life in a bubble. But at the same time, Chazz, this what we're talking about is important, and we minimize learning, but yet we should be talking about it more. We should all have some things to say and to teach because we've been studying, we've been researching. I mean, these are some wonderful things to be able to extrapolate from something to tell other people to help us out as people. But again, we're living in some days that I think we don't realize, as you mentioned, the seriousness of this. Many of us adults, we like to holler and fuss and cuss and dance and all that. But Chazz, we're bankrupt when it comes to the mental aspect.
Wow, that's sad. Letter B, ego and pride. Some of us really believe we already know everything. Especially, I want to put a marker there. If you've already got your degree, you've been to college, you've been to these fancy colleges, and you got that paper on your wall, you got that paper in your drawer, you say, this is all I need to know. I've learned everything from this college. There's nothing else that you two on this screen can tell me. I've arrived. In fact, if you tell me something, I'm pretty sure I already know it. And that's the ego and pride. And even if you haven't gone to college, you've done research, like I said, online on YouTube and all these avenues. You feel like it's an insult. You feel like we're trying to show you up if we give you some information, and that's that pride and that ego to where you can't tell us anything.
Yeah, and a lot of people have that pride and ego because when you try to tell them something, they always have something to say back. Now, it's like you, if you are an astrophysicist and you're teaching me about the science of the sky, and instead of me listening to you, learning and saying, Chad, slow down, let me take a few notes. That's beautiful. I'm going to tell you something that I don't know because I want you to think I'm into that. And this is a problem because all of us, we do this. And instead of saying, I'm going to sit down and listen, we're running our mouths as opposed to listening and learning because we don't want people to know that we don't know. And it's okay not to know. But what's not okay is when you don't know and you think you know and you're running your mouth and you haven't opened a book, you haven't looked at any type of brochure, you haven't read anything, you haven't researched. That's where the problem is because a lot of us, we just talk all the time, and we adults, we don't like to have these discussions because it exposes us. And here's one of the things that I know you want to talk about.
Letter C, overwhelmed and consumed by ignorance. We have gotten so comfortable with ignorance that we are content. And this can boil down to a couple things that are, for us, a lack of interest or motivation, or letter number two, for me, the blacks, the stereotype, the fat mouthing, the loudness, the cockiness, the loudness to where, like I said, you can't tell us nothing. We have our chest out 24/7. In fact, and that's what's brought up in the black community. A lot of these shows, a lot of these movies that we watch, which is nothing wrong, they portray us as being ignorant, and we take pride in that. We take
Yeah.
pride in being dumb, and that's just not something that we should be thankful or be proud about.
Here's another question I have, and this is rhetorical, but you can answer it if you'd like. What has happened to us that we are overwhelmed and consumed by ignorance? In other words, why would a person want to not know anything? Why would a person be okay with just resting on their laurels, sitting around, not doing anything? Why would a people be comfortable with just the run of the mill every day? Wake up in the morning, go run to wherever we got to run to, come back and sit around until the nighttime, only to repeat that process the next day. Something is wrong with us as a people, but we want to think that we're progressive. We know we're on the up and up. We're way out there. And Chaz, it's really ignorance, as this screen says. We're overwhelmed. We're consumed by ignorance. We don't know. We don't want to know. We haven't learned anything in a long time. That's why I was telling you, sometimes when we throw our head to the side like that, you can see the dust. If you look close enough, you can see the dust flying off the head because there's not been any progressive thought in any time. And Chaz, we have to not be comfortable with ignorance. We can't be content with that, man. And something is wrong with us as a people. And I don't care whether people don't like what we're saying or not, because I'm trying to be honest about it.
Yeah.
We have a problem in our culture. We really do. And it's because walls up and minds off.
And like I said before we move on to this point, it does us no justice when the media and these TV shows are constantly hitting us over the head time and time again about how, especially blacks, how being ignorant is a badge of honor. It does us no justice as well when that's constantly being portrayed about us. Letter D, routine. We have made shutting off our minds the routine of our lives. I'll let you take that one, then I'll piggyback off of it.
Yeah, because this is a routine, Chaz. We just do this every day. It's a routine, just like we brush our teeth, we wash our face, we take showers. Shutting off our minds is a routine. We don't wake up saying, what am I going to learn today? I'm going to go in here and research something. See, we don't even do that. And what let me know this was a long time ago, and it's not just about this broadcast, but I remember one time I said we were going to have a book review club. We were going to read a book by Carter G. Woodson called The Miseducation of the Negro. I got my notes together, man, and I was like, man, we're going to have 15 people want to read the book and talk about it. I got zero. Not a soul responded to that. Wow. But I'm telling you, I'm accepting the fact that this is where we are. This is not haterism. This is not being negative. This is reality. Yeah. We are living in the belly of a beast where a lot of us are just plain ignorant, meaning we don't want to know anything anymore because our minds are shut off. Chaz, we're still going on stuff that we learned many, many years ago. Many years ago. We haven't looked at, okay, the things that I learned when I was younger, I should revisit those things. I should
Right.
look at those things and say, wait, let me see something. Something maybe have changed. We do it all the time, especially, and I don't want to get on it, but especially with the next coming one we're going to talk about. It's crazy.
And I was just going to say real quick, when you said on the previous one on letter D, how we're basically, it's a routine. I think some of us aren't even aware of it. We're not even
Yeah,
aware that this is
yeah.
what we're doing. We just look at this as regular day life, going about our lives, and we don't look at it as a routine. We're just looking at it as this is something that I'm going to constantly ignore. And I don't really think this is a big issue. That's what most of us are saying. So I want to put on that one. And then we have letter E. We allow traditions to get the best of us many years. And this can go back to not questioning some of these traditions. And some of us aren't even analyzing this stuff, and especially to resistance. When you over rely on all this stuff, you're constantly not putting up any resistance. You just going with it. You're not analyzing. You're not asking any questions. You just believing it because grandmama said so, or grandpapa said so, or our uncles, or whoever had told us this. And when you're not even trying to question or push back, not saying that everything is a debate, but when you're not even researching this stuff and you're just going with it, that's a bad spot to be in.
It really is, and a lot of these traditions, even when you look at holidays, we've been doing this stuff since we were kids, man. And we're in our 50s and 60s, and we're still putting up trees. We're still talking about reindeers with red noses. We're still talking about snowmen. We're still talking about bunnies. You know, we're still talking about just different ideologies that are not ours, and it has gotten the best of us. So now we can't learn anything new. You know, we don't look back and say there's no such thing as all these traditions, the ones that we know that are not true. So we have allowed those traditions to get the best of us, and it's like we're stuck. As the one point said, we're stuck, man. We won't go forward. Some of our belief systems, some of the beliefs we have, we don't even go back and revisit those. We learn these beliefs when we're younger, and we lock onto them, and we lock onto it. And no matter what no one says, no matter what no one shows us, no matter what our hearts show us, we lock onto them, and we're going to die like that because there's no room for saying, you know what? Maybe I want to investigate this. I've never looked at that. We don't study science. We don't study the things that we should study. We just going back and allowing the traditions to get the best of us. And it's sad, but that's where many of us are.
Yeah, and when some of this stuff, and right now, a lot of this stuff with these traditions, they've already been exposed. A lot of YouTube creators and stuff are bringing this stuff up, so it's at a point now where you shouldn't be angry at the content creator for exposing it. You should be angry at yourself for living throughout these years and not questioning it and not being angry with the content creator that exposes it. Letter F, lack of motivation. Some of us have lost the drive for learning. We have no interest. Yeah, that is. We don't have any motivation to really do anything about learning. Not reading, and I like to throw this in here. Crossword puzzles, anything that's going to stimulate the mind. We just don't, because once again, I said this earlier, brother. Because reading and these things are in learning, they don't really have any wealth attached. There's no power attached to it. There's no influence attached to it. There's no kind of popularity attached to it. So we think it's meaningless. And this is why we have now I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying these are the reasons why we don't have any interest in it.
Yeah, and this is one of the saddest points we've ever made on this broadcast. And we've made many points. We put up many little deals that we talk about, but this is one of the saddest ones because it says we lack motivation. You know, when a person lacks motivation, we say they're depressed. But we lack motivation for learning. We have no drive in learning. And here's another question. It's rhetorical, Chazz. You don't have to answer it. But I'm beginning to question a lot of things now because my whole mindset is like skeptical because I'm trying to figure out what happened to us where we have no interest in learning. That puzzles me. It baffles me. It befuddles me. Any words you want to use that says confusion is what I'm dealing with. I don't know of people, especially in this year, almost 2026, according to European standards. I don't know any group of people other than us. Now, it may be in other cultures, but I'm not there, so I can't speak for them. That seems like we have thrown in the towel for learning. We have no interest, Chaz. We don't want to be bothered. We have our own things to do. We want to be left alone. We want to be shut in. We want to go in our caves and just chant, and we want to do other things, but we don't want to learn. We lack motivation, and this is one of the saddest broadcasts that we're going to do because it shows the state of adults, African American adults, who think we know everything, but we have not learned, picked up any kind of book, notebook, magazine, anything, and it's there, man. Something is wrong with us, Chaz.
Yeah, and I just want to say this as a side note. This isn't a doom and gloom presentation. This isn't a depressing presentation. This is just a wake-up call for all of us. Because I know some of us will say, man, these two guys, they're doom and gloom. They're just giving me no hope. No, it's not about that. It's just simply about bringing awareness to the situation, doing a self-maintenance check to where you say, you know what? These brothers are probably hitting on some things that I'm not doing. And myself as well. We're all included in this. And I just want to hit that home because I don't want people to think that we're just doom and gloom and not giving them anything to look up to. But it's just for all of us to have a self-maintenance in a wake-up call.
You see, that's one of the problems with us, Chaz. It really is. We want to hear things that we want to hear. And the point of it is, if anybody's listening to this broadcast, they would see that we are in a crucial state. Yeah. We're in a crisis situation. So we should have no business on this broadcast telling everybody we're doing great, everything is fantastic, everybody's reading, all the knowledge is flowing out of all of our mouths. That's not happening. So those people that have that kind of mindset, it goes again to show that we can't even discern when someone's telling us something for our own good, lest we called it negative, but yet this is called reality. And this is why we have the problems with many of us, because we just have, we've done this point here.
Note. People give up on a lot of things, so let's put learning in that pile too.
You know, Chaz, you have these piles where, let's say, we give up on stuff, so we say, well, I might have wanted to be a doctor, so I know I'm not going to be a doctor, so I throw that in the pile I've given up. I might want it to be this, I throw that in the pile. I'm not going to do that. I might have wanted to be this or whatever that is. I'm not going to be that, so I've thrown that in a pile of I'll never do that. But when you throw learning in that pile, that's really bad. Because those other things we may not have been able to do, and we understand that. But learning should never be thrown in that pile because you're never too old. It's never too late to learn. And I know, Chaz, that's why, conversationally speaking, you don't get many good conversations anymore. Because if you were learning, I'm just using us as an example. Okay. If, let's say, you represent our people and I represent our people. And if you were learning and I was learning, when we speak with each other, there's going to be information that's flowing, reciprocal, back and forth. Chaz, what did you learn? Well, Jah learned this. So you start talking about the dangers of salt, what it does, okay? Then I'll say, well, Chaz, that's good because I need to cut down on my salt eating instead of getting angry with you. Then I'm gonna come back to you and say, Chaz, I've learned that if you do this or do that, so we're talking now, it's reciprocal. We keep couples, marriages, relationships, people, friends, co-workers. Look at our conversations, see what they're about now. They're what they call, they're superficial. It's only, how you doing? I'm doing good. That's it. Or something that's going on TV, like a game or something. Did you see the game last night? And all that's okay, Chaz. But when are we going to take learning out of that pile and say, I'm going to own up to this one. I'm going to make sure that I get back in the game because I'm too old to not learn. And this is why you can tell when we open our mouths what's in our brain. And it's probably a lot of nothing.
And I was going to say, I don't think you can get learning out of that pile. I think we've thrown that in that pile. What? And we're not interested in going back in that pile. Because we do that, for example, with laundry. Sometimes we may be folding clothes or something, and we put our clean clothes on accident. We accidentally put it in that dirty clothes pile. You say, well, wait a minute, I made a mistake. I didn't mean to do that. But on this one, this is intentional. We've thrown learning in that pile, and we say, you know what? I'm not interested in going back. This is it. I'm retiring from it. I plan on changing this, and that's the state. That's the state we're in. Letter G, improper upbringing. Some of us were not raised in a household where mental improvement was important. Yeah, they didn't really do a good job, and this is no knock on that household, but maybe they were ignorant and they didn't know. they didn't do a good job at teaching us how important our mental health was, especially when you have a family that's always fighting, always in front of the kids, or always, being aggressive or tearing up the house. We didn't do a good job at stressing to them how important being mentally sound is, having a sharp mind, reading, research, all these things that's going to elevate you as you get older. Some of our people that we grew up with didn't do that, and that's no knock on them. Some of them just may have been ignorant to that point.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of that because that's not an excuse, Chazz. And I know you're not using it as an excuse. I'm talking about this is not an excuse about people saying, "Well, I wasn't brought up in a house that was." It's not about how you were brought up. It's about what you're doing now. My mother used to always tell me, and my father used to tell me this: "Be better than me. Be better than me." So if we didn't get that kind of upbringing in our household, we would want to tell those coming behind us the importance of learning that. So you see, all these are cop outs, and we try to get out the window. We try to go run out the back door. We try to do everything we can to get away from dealing with the fact it has to do with us, even though our upbringing may not have been that way. What's wrong with us now? We know better. Our ancestors didn't have the internet. They didn't have social media. They didn't have these TV shows. They didn't have the movies that we have. They didn't have the dictionaries and things that we have. They didn't have all the updated data. We have that data now, so there is no excuse under the earth that we should be going back to blame on something that is on us today. It's not about what happened back then. It's what are we doing today? And what we're doing is nothing. And our ancestors would probably be not happy if they knew we were still stagnant, sitting around, not doing anything, hoping for the best, knowing that many of us ought to stop that.
Letter H, we haven't even cleaned out our minds from old, outdated data. Yeah, like they supposed to after so often, you're supposed to do touch-ups where you let things linger around for a while. You may have had them. Sometimes you may have, like you said, dust it all, clean it up, do some touch-ups with it. But that old data in our mind isn't even getting touched up. In fact, it's getting deleted. Some of the information, we just don't care about it. And in fact, when you don't clean out your mind and you have all this stuff in it, it kind of weighs a person down. It's like a computer. You have all these viruses, all this crap on this computer. Eventually, the computer is going to just break because you're not doing any maintenance on it. You're not getting it cleaned out. You're not deleting files. You're not doing any of these things. And that's only with the mind as well. When you have all this stuff that's piled on for years, decades, centuries, and you're not cleaning it out, it's gonna break that person down.
At least try. I had an adult tell me the other day, and I don't want to even mention names because it's really sad. We were talking about the planets. Now we know that there's only 8 planets, but they said there were 9 planets, and they mentioned Pluto as a planet. Now Pluto is called a dwarf. It's not a planet as in Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Venus, Earth, etc., etc. And they didn't know that Pluto was not considered as a planet. They were still operating under the old data. When I was going to school, we were taught that Pluto was a planet, but they found out and discovered using telescopes and scientific data that Pluto is not a planet. But some of us we still think that it's a planet. This goes to show how outdated our minds are. The data, it's like a lot of the religious concepts. The data is still in us. Some of that data, everybody progresses. And I don't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we don't even go back and research and say, let me look at this. Because see, I go back to science. We were never taught science. So now all the scientific data that we have in front of us now, and we still refuse to go back and clean out our minds from old data. We're stuck, man. We're stuck, and slapping us on the back ain't gonna get us out of it. It's just that we have no need for mental improvement or learning, and that's really bad, man. We've touched on that. I'm gonna let you get on this, and then we'll stop. We'll come back next week, and we'll talk about 5 strong reasons or signs that a person's mind is shut down. But let's end on this one.
Letter J, too busy. Some of us have allowed ourselves to be so stressed that we're just running all the time, really doing nothing important. And I've touched on that earlier. And that kind of ties into the routine part, to where we're going to work, coming home, picking up our kids from school, or dropping them off, picking them up. And we've got so much stuff that we're doing on a constant level, to where we've been stressed out with just like going to work. Some of these things are just stressing us out to the point to where we don't really have time to do any research. We feel like we don't have time to make extra time to do some of these things. And like I said, just with work and some of us who have kids, just those two alone are stressing us out. So we're just tired, and we're just worn out. We don't really feel like this is important.
And see, Chaz, and this is why I wanted to bring in the kids at this point, because I feel sorry for many of our kids, our youth, because we know the school system, the educational system is not teaching them what they need to know in many instances.
Right.
Because some of the things they're teaching them, the 1+1, 2+2, all that's okay, but they're not teaching them what they need to know about themselves. We don't know ourselves, so the kids are got what they call a double whammy on them. It used to be a time where adults, especially back in the 60s and the 70s, where people used to say, "What's happening?" They wanted to know what was going on. Tell me something new. And they would always sit around and we would call it philosophizing. But that was what they had learned, different concepts and ideas. And they wanted you to know. Now, the way they said it was cool, but they would talk about things they learned, man. And it was always refreshing to hear brothers sitting around saying, "Oh, man, check this out." Then they start talking about cells. They would start talking about molecules. They would talk about atoms, They would talk about Golgi body and all these things that they would study. We don't do that today. If a person starts talking like that, we're going to say, "Oh, they think they know everything, or they trying to be smart." It goes back to what you said about our ignorance, our pervasive ignorance that we have accepted. See, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves because our kids they're not able to learn new concepts and new ideas because we're not teaching them at home. And many of our parents and great parents, grandparents rather, they may not have had a eighth grade education, but they were always teaching, man. They were always teaching. But these modern day men and women like us and a lot of the sisters, we're not interested in doing anything but being left alone. And it's something that has to change because many of us adults, we are the problem, Chaz. We don't like to be told. We like to talk about other people, and many other people are the problem. But we don't want to own up our part. And that is, many of us have done this. Walls up, mind off. So we still have some notes to go, Chaz, but we'll just stop here because this is a good stopping point because, as I said, we'll come back next week and we'll look at 5 strong signs that a person's mind is shut down. Okay. And when we talk about those signs, that'll let us know where we are and what we need to do. So we really want to encourage people that's watching this broadcast to realize that I think they once said, the United Negro College Fund said, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. Yeah. And it appears that we have wasted our minds. There's another one that says, the mind is like a computer. If you put nonsense in it, you're going to get nonsense out of it. So, on all these little quotes and stuff, and I can go on and on as I started off by talking about what Voltaire said. Voltaire said, the greatest enemy of truth, he said, it's not the lie. He said it's the lazy mind. Wow. It used to be a time where people would call you. They want to know what you teaching. What's going on? They don't want to know anymore, Chaz. And that's why you sit back and you just look at the declining of our culture. And it's sad because many of us have given up on learning. And I think it's really a disgrace. But we don't want to talk about it, see. We don't want to open up. We don't even like to talk about it because we know that it's that bad. And we want to make excuses because you know just as well as I know. I should be learning more than I know. I should know more than I know. So I'm included. Yeah. But yet, many of us just don't want to do it. And I don't know what it is, man. I don't think this is life, because if this is life, this is nothing. If this is life, life has got to be more than just waking up, doing a few things, going to bed, repeating it. There's got to be something to stimulate the mind, and I just don't get it, Chaz. And I'm trying to figure it out, and I guess I probably won't ever get it. It's just I see where we are now, and that's why a lot of times, you can't talk to people. There's nothing to say to them. They don't want to hear what you got to say. And what they're saying is like 50 years old. They're still saying the same stuff they said when they were little kids. We all do that. Nothing new.
Absolutely. And it's to a point, like you said, where some of us, we got to do better. And I'm not going to keep beating the dead horse saying that these things are impossible. They are possible for the people who want to learn these things or try to get out of this rut. But yeah, it's just a bad spot that some of us have got ourselves in.
And we want to say this note: if you have given up on learning, that's fine if you're going to change.
Right.
If you've given up on learning and say, I don't want to learn anymore, this is how I am, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you've given up on learning and you know that you should go back to the drawing board, that's fine. Just go back and start the process. You
Yeah.
have to start somewhere. But you'll see that your life is much more rewarding. It really is. When you're learning new things, Chazz, that brings it brings something to the heart. It does. When I learn something new, I mean, it just like a light that goes on, light switch that turns on in my mind, and then I get to use that in my own life, because it's not just about learning so you can tell people, but it's learning for self improvement. And I'm telling you, man, it's like we're living in a we've gone back in time when it comes to learning, and
Yeah.
that's why people don't like to talk about it, because again, we haven't learned, and this is what they call an uncomfortable conversation. It shouldn't be. It
Yeah.
should be comfortable, because we know that we're not doing what we should do, Chazz, and it's just sad, man. It really is.
Yeah, and like I said, it's something that we all could learn from. This isn't, like I said, a depressing video. It's a video for all of us to learn and take some mental notes, and just do a little bit better on it. Like I said, it's not doom and gloom, myself included. We all can improve and do better, but like you said, this goes to the point where when you realize there's a problem, you identify and you say, you know what, I'm lacking in this area. Let me go back in that pile and start learning or try to learn better again. Even my little YouTube app. I mean, I'm constantly on there. I'm constantly trying to find and figure out new things and trying to get an advantage. But like you said, it's to each his own. Hopefully, we can snap out of it though.
Yeah, and I think we can, but you don't want to get caught up in that situation that we said, aphasia. You don't want to get caught up in aphasia, because that's bad, because you can't come out of that,
Right.
because you're so deep into it. You can't come out. It's like I was doing some studying, and I was looking at if a person got in a spaceship and went uh, faster than the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second. And they went to they went to another galaxy, and by the time they got back, it says even though they may make it back,
Okay.
there would be about 1,000 year period that's gone back, that's
Wow.
gone by. So even though we go back to get some new things, if we wait around too long, by the time we come back, it's not going to be able to register. And I thought that was something very telling with many of us. And it's like we're letting time slip by, man.
Yeah.
Time, they say time is standing still, but we know time is not doing anything. But this is a metaphor. Time is slipping by, man.
Yeah.
And we're too old not to know more than we know. And I'm talking about myself first. I'm too old not to know more than I know. And
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. I don't get it. With the day now, everybody's talking about this consciousness movement. Everybody talking about this energy. Everybody,
Yeah, let me throw this one in there. This whole Hebrew Israelite movement, we the chosen tribes of Jacob and Judah and all that. I mean, that's the newest one that's out there that everybody's just swept away, wake up with.
and see, we should research that though, Chazz. We should go back and see. Take the principles that was good from there and use it today. But going back there and dressing like them, stuff like that, hollering, that's not really that's not progressive at all. That's being stuck in time. Chaz, that was thousands of years ago, man. So
Yeah.
why can't we take the principles and bring them today? But see, we're stuck in time, man. Well,
Yeah.
we're still stuck in time, and we got to realize we have to challenge. We'll talk about this more next week. How we have to take our spiritual beliefs, our religious beliefs. We have to look at these things, and we have to lay them on the table and put something on the side of it. And if your mind can say, wow, I made a mistake, I need to start looking at this. That's a beautiful person that's growing. But see, a lot of us, we're not going to lay anything on the table. We're stuck, man. We're stuck. We don't care what you say. We don't care what you show us. We don't care what you do. This is where we are. And that's the demise of a people who's on their way down than on their way up. When you can't tell them anything, when you can't show them anything, and when they won't let some of these outdated beliefs, this data, we won't let it go. We won't let it go.
Wow, that was well said, man. It's hopefully next week we can pick this back up and touch up where we left off at. But yeah, this was an interesting broadcast, and like I said, we all can do better, myself included. And like I said, I feel like I can do a lot better as well.
Yeah, and I want to just chime in and say thank you for tuning in to Adults Only. We come on every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time, and we come on at 7:30 Standard Time on the East Coast. So we really thank you for tuning into this broadcast. We know that a lot of things that we say offend people, but this broadcast is to help us. So hopefully you take it in light to know that we want you to grow, because a lot of people don't want to say these things because they want to keep you in ignorance, whereas we don't. And we want you all to know that we want you to have what the sister says she won't tell, which is peace. This is a kind of peace that is going to help you grow. It's going to help you learn. We just want you to know that in your heart, test yourself and see if you're really on the up and up. If not, start something.
Yeah.
Start a group, a learning group or something. You know what? You want to just something where you get back in the group of learning, man, because learning has become a dinosaur now in many of our lives, and that's why our youth are the way they are. That's why our young adults are the way they are. That's why us adults are the way we are, because Chazz, we will not learn.
Yeah. Well, that's well said. But yeah, like I said, next week hopefully we can pick this back up and finish up where we left off at. But I appreciate you for having me on. I appreciate Sister Sakina, Sister Mashonda, Sister Marie, all the people that chimed in today. We do appreciate you for taking out your own time to watch us. We truly do, and we thank you for the donation for that play that we got from Sister Sakina. But yeah, hopefully next week we can pick it back up, brother.
All right, we'll see you then.
Take care.